We have some new information about Final Fantasy 16, so I definitely want to talk about that. Two games might be getting a PlayStation 5 release in Mortal Shell and Hunting Simulator 2, as trophy lists have emerged for those two, and I do want to give you guys a heads up on a new roguelite action title. Dandy Ace will be coming March 25th for PC, later this summer for PlayStation 4, X1, and Switch. We'll talk that at the end of this video. But Final Fantasy 16, among my most anticipated games of the year, it's probably this and Ratchet and Clank. I am still very skeptical on God of War coming out this year, so I haven't really gotten super amped up for it, but FF16 seems relatively far along, and, part of me still thinks it's going to get delayed, but nevertheless, incredibly excited about it, especially with the team that's working on it. And Final Fantasy 16 producer Naoki Yoshida appeared during the Game Hack Corner on the latest episode of the Tokyo FM radio show one morning today, and he talked a little bit about Final Fantasy 16. Gamatsu has a couple of tidbits that I do want to talk about, so let's go over them. Final Fantasy 16 is quite action-oriented. It's a Final Fantasy featuring story and action. What about players who aren't good at action games? Noting we really want players to enjoy the story, so we're preparing a mode for players who want to focus on the story. Since we have quite the substantial support actions, we're of course preparing something easy to operate and smooth to play. Don't worry too much, players who aren't good at action game. I'm from the generation that has been playing the Final Fantasy series from the first game in real time. I'm almost in my 50s. I think the Warrior of Light have grown up in their own world, so I want to create a world of Final Fantasy that those who know the good and bad of reality can also be passionate about. I believe there are certain hardships that are experienced when becoming an adult, so I want to make the main theme of this game something that those who grew up playing Final Fantasy and understand reality can still enjoy and get something out of and think about. I've thrown my kind of hypothesis of what I think the story of Final Fantasy 16 is going to be. Seems to be a mature story, a bit of a coming-of-age story. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to unfold, but so far what I see, I'm really digging the vibe and the dark thematics that Final Fantasy 16 has got going on for it, and hopefully the story is going to come together a lot better than Final Fantasy 15. I know sometimes I get ragged on when I meme on Final Fantasy 15, guys. I was excited for Final Fantasy 15 so much. I mean, back in 2016, I literally got a PlayStation 4 Pro and a new television because I wanted to play Final Fantasy 15 in the most optimal way possible, and I enjoyed the game, but honestly, and I had a couple of friends watch me play the entirety of that game, and when we got to the end, we were like, yo, that's it? What happened to this story? And obviously, there's DLC content, there's Kingsglaive Final Fantasy 15 that really helps that story come together a little bit more, but it was not up to the standard of Final Fantasy that I've come to expect. It just seemed a very disjointed, so I'm hoping for something a little bit better out of Final Fantasy 16. Them having a mode that is going to cater towards people that don't want an action-oriented game or a difficult game, I don't think there's any problem with that. At the end of the day, people that are into these games probably will go the route of playing it with the standard mode, but if they want to get more people playing the game, have an easier and more accessible mode that is story-focused, and hey, if they have a story-focused mode, hopefully that means the narrative is going to be incredibly strong, so that's a good sign to me. It'll be interesting to see if the game is out this year and when we get some more definitive information. I would imagine that summertime would be logical because Square Enix does traditionally hold their own E3 conference, obviously with the World State. It'll be interesting to see how all of that is rolled out, but I would imagine that Square Enix would be dropping information come this summer. And honestly, given the team that's working on the title, yes, I am very pessimistic when it comes to game release windows, but I'm a little bit more optimistic with the people that are behind this game because I have a lot of faith in Yoshida. I think that team is going to do a great job with this game, and the thing about this is they showed off the game in a state where it looks like it's relatively far along, and it looks like they are putting, not to say the finishing touches of it, but it seems like they have a lot of the groundwork already done, and they're really starting to proceed into the final stages, if that makes sense. So that's my take on where I see the development of this game is. That's just my, opinion and my hypothesis of where I think the game is, and I do think that Square Enix has learned a little bit from the train wreck of a release that Final Fantasy 15 ended up being, with all the delays and everything like that, originally being Versus 13, and I think they'll roll out their games in a different manner, because think about it, a new Final Fantasy game being revealed and then being scheduled for the following year. When was the last time we saw something like that? I mean, 13 took many years, 15 took many years, Final Fantasy VII Remake took many years, so I definitely like that strategy of, unveiling a game when it's relatively far along and then scheduling it for a release not too far after, not, 4, 5, 6 years after. I'm not really a big fan of that. Especially in the cases of like Cyberpunk, where the anticipation and the build and the hype just grows so much in that time period that there's no way you're going to live up to it. With FF16, I think they're at a really good spot. Okay, moving on from that, a couple of other things to note. Mortal Shell and Hunting Simulator 2 have found new trophy lists, and they have emerged for PlayStation 5 versions of the game. Mortal Shell, obviously a little bit of a Souls-like game. Wasn't able to play that all too much, but I know a buddy of mine got super into it and told me that it wasn't like at the level of Souls, but it was a decent enough game in its own right. So that's one I definitely have to go back and play a little bit more. I've kind of got lost in the shuffle during that 2020 period in the summer. And then Hunting Simulator 2, obviously, if you're into that, you'll probably dig it on the PlayStation 5. 2 more games getting PlayStation 5 upgrades. Hopefully sooner rather than later, we get the wave of new games coming. You know, Returnal is going to be the first one later in April, and then Ratchet & Clank, and we should see more and more trickle in. Lastly, I do want to note, roguelite action game Dandy Ace launches March 25th for PC this summer for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch. This game looks super colorful. Wanted to give a shout on it, and it's coming from publisher NeoWiz and developer Mad Mimic. Dandy Ace is a game that looks charming and inviting, but you soon found out just how far the rabbit hole goes once you start playing. Mad Mimic's made a blend of action RPG and roguelite that's both addictive and stylish, with countless ways to play through its myriad winding levels. We cannot wait for players to get their hands on the final product, said Mad Mimic COO Luis Sampaio. Added also, Dandy Ace has been a labor of love from the start. We're thrilled to finally show off every trick Ace has up his sleeve this March, and will be revealing plans for downloadable content in the near future. So again, the March release is for the PC version of the game, so do expect the console version a little bit later on. Digging the look of the game, it notes it's an over-the-top action game that follows this fabulous magician seeking to combine and use his magical cards, fighting and looting his way to defeat the green-eyed illusionist and free himself from a cursed mirror. Seems a little bit zany, a little bit off the wall, but very colorful in presentation, and the art style is definitely something I can get into. It is noted to be an over-the-top, fast-paced game, and play as Dandy Ace, the amazing hero, and survive the challenges of the extravagant, lavish, and ever-changing palace created to defeat him, filled with bizarre creatures and outrageous bosses. Find all of the magical cards, gather shards and gold, and get help from his assistants and unconventional allies. So again, March 25th PC, later in the summer for consoles. And that's going to wrap up this one. Definitely let me know your thoughts on Final Fantasy 16. What's your excitement level for the game? What do you think about the setting of the game as well, and the look? Because I actually had a friend hit me up telling me that he's more of a fan of the high fantasy setting, so interested to hear what you guys think. Mortal Shell Hunting Simulator 2 headed to the PlayStation 5, seemingly with trophy lists popping up, and roguelite action game Dandy Ace will be dropping this summer for the PS4. That's going to wrap up this one. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.